We have a problem, Batman. Gotham needs you again.
Galactus is hunger-given cosmic form, a being whose very existence depends on consuming the life energy of entire planets to sustain himself. He operates beyond human concepts of morality or malice. He doesn't devour worlds out of cruelty, but out of necessity, viewing planetary consumption the same way humans view eating food. The Contingency Protocol must account for a cosmic entity whose power dwarfs entire solar systems, but whose actions follow predictable patterns based on his fundamental need for sustenance. His greatest advantage isn't his reality-altering abilities, but his complete detachment from human values and concerns, making negotiation or moral appeals essentially meaningless. The plan must address a force of nature that happens to be sentient, someone whose survival requirements make him an existential threat to all planetary life regardless of his personal feelings about the matter. Physical scale makes conventional resistance completely irrelevant, as Galactus exists on a level where entire star systems serve as his operational theater and planets are merely resources to be harvested. His size varies depending on his hunger level and the dimensional space he occupies, but at minimum he towers over skyscrapers, while at maximum he can manipulate stellar objects with his bare hands. His cosmic awareness allows him to perceive events across vast distances and multiple dimensions simultaneously, making stealth or surprise attacks impossible from any normal perspective. The power cosmic grants him abilities that include matter manipulation, energy projection, time travel, dimensional manipulation, and reality alteration on scales that make conventional physics meaningless. The strategy requires accepting that direct confrontation is not just futile but conceptually impossible, focusing instead on influencing his behavior through methods that operate outside normal cause and affect relationships. Herald's system provides his primary vulnerability because his dependence on servants to locate suitable planets creates opportunities for intervention before he arrives at populated worlds. His heralds possess portions of the power cosmic that allow them to travel vast distances quickly, while scouting for planets with the specific life energy signatures that can sustain him. These beings often retain fragments of their original personalities and moral frameworks, making them potentially susceptible to persuasion, corruption, or rebellion against their master's directives. The approach involves identifying and intercepting heralds before they can report back about Earth or other inhabited worlds, either through destruction, conversion, or misdirection toward uninhabited planets that might satisfy Galactus's needs. When his information gathering becomes compromised or unreliable, his efficiency decreases and opportunities for escape or negotiation increase. What do you think, Alfred?
Master Bruce, Galactus represents something that transcends traditional concepts of good and evil. A cosmic necessity that exists beyond moral judgment, yet poses an existential threat to everything we value. His consumption of planets isn't malicious, but rather comparable to breathing or eating for beings like us. The most troubling aspect is that he may be genuinely necessary for cosmic balance, serving purposes we cannot comprehend at our limited scale of existence. Perhaps the most strategic approach involves finding alternative food sources that can satisfy his cosmic hunger without requiring the destruction of inhabited worlds. Sometimes the solution to an unstoppable force isn't resistance but redirection toward acceptable targets.
Alfred's point about cosmic necessity is philosophically interesting, but tactically irrelevant when faced with planetary extinction. Whether Galactus serves some greater cosmic purpose doesn't change the immediate need to prevent Earth's consumption. The strategy must focus on practical alternatives, uninhabited planets with suitable energy signatures, artificial energy sources that might substitute for planetary life force, or methods to enhance his efficiency so he requires fewer worlds overall. This involves researching the specific types of energy he needs, identifying suitable alternatives that don't require genocide, and developing technologies that could create or concentrate the necessary cosmic forces. When survival is at stake, philosophical considerations about cosmic balance become secondary to finding workable solutions. What do you think, Robin?
Galactus is the universe's biggest problem that doesn't know it's a problem. He's not trying to be evil, he's just really, really hungry and happens to eat the same planets that people live on. It's like if there was a giant who needed to eat anthills to survive, but didn't realize the ants were intelligent. The key isn't convincing him we're worth saving, it's showing him there are other options that work just as well without killing everyone. Sometimes the best solution to an impossible problem is making it someone else's problem by giving them better alternatives.
Robin's insight about Galactus being unaware he's causing a problem rather than intentionally threatening worlds shifts the approach from resistance to education and alternative provision. The strategy involves demonstrating that inhabited worlds represent unnecessary complications to his feeding process, that uninhabited planets or artificial energy sources could provide equivalent sustenance without the defensive responses that populated worlds generate. This includes developing cosmic, scale energy production that could substitute for planetary life force, identifying suitable dead worlds that might meet his needs, and presenting these alternatives in ways that appeal to his desire for efficient feeding rather than his non-existent moral concerns. When feeding becomes easier through cooperation rather than conquest, even cosmic devourers can be redirected toward mutually acceptable solutions. Ultimate Nullifier represents the only known weapon capable of threatening Galactus directly, though its use carries risks that could destroy the wielder and potentially entire sectors of reality, depending on the user's willpower and cosmic awareness. This device appears to be connected to fundamental forces of entropy and negation that operate on scales comparable to Galactus's own power, making it one of the few things in existence that he genuinely fears. The strategy involves locating the nullifier when it's not in his possession, understanding its operational requirements and safety protocols, and identifying individuals with sufficient mental discipline to wield it without causing universal catastrophe. The weapon serves more effectively as a negotiating tool than an actual weapon, since its threat value often exceeds its practical utility given the collateral damage its use would cause. The final assessment acknowledges that Galactus represents the ultimate challenge to human scale thinking, a problem so vast that conventional solutions become meaningless while unconventional approaches require resources and knowledge beyond normal comprehension. His management requires accepting that some threats operate on scales where survival depends on cosmic diplomacy rather than planetary defense, where solutions involve reshaping fundamental aspects of reality rather than winning traditional conflicts. The contingency serves as both emergency response and acknowledgement that some problems require evolution of human capabilities rather than application of existing ones. Because in the end, the greatest victory over Galactus won't be defeating him, but transcending the limitations that make his hunger a threat, proving that intelligence and creativity can find alternatives to extinction, even when facing forces that dwarf entire civilizations. That survival sometimes requires becoming something greater than what we were rather than simply fighting harder as what we are.